Hey everyone! Today I've got some stuff that'll keep you on edge. If you enjoy it, hit subscribe and leave a like. Here we go. My neighbor knows my work schedule better than I do. I only realized because of a coffee mistake. This is a story about how comprehensively and methodically someone can study you without your knowledge, about the small, seemingly insignificant details of daily life that seem harmless until they suddenly, undeniably become proof of something darker. I've been working from home for about 8 months now. Same routine every day. Wake up around 6:30, make coffee by 7, settle into my office by 7:30. Boring and comfortable. About 2 months in, I started noticing my neighbor Carol was always outside. In the mornings when I checked the mailbox around 8, there she'd be doing yard work. Around 2 p.m., when I stepped out for air, she'd be watering plants or pulling weeds. Evening time, Carol on her porch, just sitting there. At first, I thought nothing of it. People have routines. But then I started paying attention to the timing. It was like a weird itch in the back of my mind. Last month, I forgot to make coffee before sitting down. Didn't realize until 7:37 a.m. I went to the kitchen, made a cup, and took it outside on the front steps while I woke up. Usually I don't go out until around 8. I opened the door at 7:37 in the morning. At that exact moment, Carol was standing at the end of her driveway facing my house. Not gardening, not watering, just standing there, looking at my door. That's when everything clicked. All those months of her timing matching mine. It wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate. She was tracking me. And everything shifted in a single moment. What had felt peculiar before suddenly felt deeply, undeniably wrong. OP's entire sense of safety, of privacy, of knowing she alone controlled her own world, it all shattered right there. So right now something clicks into place for OP. 7 minutes early. The neighbor is waiting at the end of her driveway, like she'd just been standing there, passing time. Definitely not watching, definitely not waiting for someone specific. But OP knows better now. You can't explain this away as coincidence anymore. Not now. I started going through it all mentally. Every coffee run. Every time I'd stepped outside to take a call or grab groceries. Every afternoon when I'd gone for a walk or sat on my porch. And my blood ran cold because the pattern was undeniable. The neighbor wasn't just around. She was always around. At exactly the times I was. When I worked from home on Mondays and took my 11 a.m. coffee break, she'd be out by 11:05. Wednesday afternoons, I'd take a call on the porch around 2:30 p.m., she'd appear at 2:35. Friday mornings, I'd go to the mailbox at 10:15. There she'd be, suddenly needing something from her car. Every single time. I'd varied my schedule constantly, and every time I shifted my routine, she shifted with me. Same day, same hour, sometimes the same minute. The realization sat heavy in my chest. Someone had to be actively tracking this. Actively watching, actively studying me. You don't accidentally know someone's schedule this well. To know not just when I step outside, but what time I step outside, to the minute, you'd have to be paying close attention, deliberate attention, for months. To match my schedule this accurately, she'd have to know things about my routine that even I didn't track consciously. She had to be studying me. How long had she been doing this? How many days or weeks had I been watched before I started noticing? What had she written down about my routine that I hadn't kept track of? I didn't want to know the answer, but I couldn't stop the spiral of questions. She knew me. She knew my schedule. She knew exactly when I'd be outside. And somehow, I'd been completely blind to it. The full weight of it crashes down all at once. This isn't coincidence. This isn't luck or bad timing or a weird neighbor quirk. Someone is actively, deliberately watching. Someone is keeping meticulous track of OP's movements and routines. Someone knows OP's schedule better than OP knows it themselves. And the absolutely terrifying part, OP still has no idea how long this has actually been going on. Days, weeks, months, maybe even years. And that's when the paranoia truly takes hold. So OP decided to put this theory to the test. I decided I needed proof, not just suspicion. So the next week, I changed things up on purpose. Monday, I left at 10:30 instead of 9. She was outside at 10:28, watering her plants, but watching my driveway. Tuesday, I stayed in until noon. At 11:55, she came out, looked around, checked her watch, went back in. Wednesday, I did an errand run at an odd time, left at 2 p.m. instead of my usual morning routine. I saw her through my car window, already positioned by her mailbox, checking her phone and glancing down the street. That's when the dread really hit me. This wasn't about coincidence anymore. This was documented. This was consistent. This was intentional on her part. She wasn't just happening to be outside. She was actively waiting, timing herself to my life with precision. I started feeling watched in my own home. Every time I moved past a window, I wondered if she was tracking my silhouette from across the yard. Every time my garage door opened, I knew she'd be aware of it within seconds. The violation of it felt suffocating, invasive in a way I couldn't quite articulate to anyone. How long had this been happening? How deep did her knowledge of my routine really go? And most importantly, why? Readers on the subreddit were horrified. This is legitimately terrifying. She didn't even hide it, just waited for you at the end of the driveway? That's bold and insane. Install more cameras, now. Multiple angles, both front and back. You need irrefutable proof of her on your property or near it. And change your routine. Vary your schedule completely. But one comment cut to something more fundamental. Has she ever tried to talk to you? Or is she only watching? That might tell you if this is romantic obsession or something else entirely. And that question, what she wanted, would haunt OP. OP came back a few days later, and this is where things took a hard turn. I showed the police the photos, and they believed me. I don't even know where to start with this. After the coffee incident on Tuesday, I couldn't stop thinking about how she had just materialized. So I pulled every frame from my security cameras. The ones facing the driveway, the street side, everything. I went back months. She was there, every single time, waiting by her fence, sitting on her porch, standing at the end of her driveway, always positioned where she could see my door, always watching. Then I checked my window blinds. Some of them had tiny gaps, like someone had been peeking through. My hands were shaking. I knew I had to confront her. I marched over and asked her, point blank, how she knew my schedule so well. She just stared at me like I was crazy. Then I told her I had security footage. She went back inside without another word. I called the police that day. The officer was skeptical at first, but then I showed him the security footage and the gaps in my blinds. He asked about other evidence. I didn't mention the photos yet because I hadn't seen them myself, but I asked if they could search her phone. They got a warrant. What they found made me absolutely sick. Over 300 photographs of me, dated back almost a year. Some were taken from my window, some from when I was getting my mail, some from my driveway, time-stamped, organized in folders. It wasn't random, it was calculated and methodical. The officer showed me a few of them and my stomach dropped. My neighbor had been documenting me. There was a folder on her phone labeled with my name, my actual name. Hundreds of organized photographs like I was some kind of subject to study. I've never felt so violated. The comment section absolutely lost it. Oh my God, the coffee timing thing gave me chills. She was so locked into your routine she couldn't adjust in time. Please document everything and get those photos as evidence now. This is exactly right. That coffee mistake was actually OP's lucky break because it shows this person can't deviate from the pattern they've created. That's the evidence you need. The predictability of her own behavior proves obsession, not innocent neighboring. This is the kind of behavior that escalates. Neighbors who stalk almost always have obsessive tendencies that get worse, not better. You need to take this seriously immediately. And that's when everyone understood this wasn't about schedule synchronicity anymore. It was time to stop watching and start documenting. OP gathered everything, the photos, the timestamps, the security footage, and went to the police. I showed the police the photos, and they believed me. I put together a timeline with the photos, timestamps, everything I had documented. The detective I talked to wasn't skeptical at all. He looked through the security footage I had pulled, and his face just got darker. He said he'd seen obsessive behavior before, but the level of documentation this showed, the dates, the way she positioned herself, the consistency, that was deliberate surveillance. They contacted her for questioning, and she completely denied it. Denied matching my schedule, denied taking photos, said it was all coincidence and that I was being paranoid. but the photos on her phone didn't lie. The detective told me they were building a case, but that they'd recommend I take extra precautions. That's when I decided I wasn't waiting around for the legal system to move at a snail's pace. I started looking at apartments in a different part of the city the same day. I didn't want to be the person she studied anymore. I wanted to be invisible to her. One comment cut right to the dread beneath it all. The year-long timeline is what gets me. This wasn't a new thing she just picked up. She's been documenting you for months or longer. That's premeditated. That's the thing that stays with you about a story like this. It's not about a moment of violence or a break-in. It's about someone studying you so completely that they know your life better than you do, and doing it without your knowledge. The intimacy of your routine, the one thing you thought was just yours, gets mapped and recorded. It makes you question every detail of how you move through the world. And yeah, on to the next one. My neighbor over the 10-foot fence used to hand feed me when I was 8. She was 9 feet tall. I'm 28 now, and I still don't know what she was. Here's one about an encounter from childhood that never quite made sense. The person posting about it is 28 now, and the mystery has been eating away at her for 2 decades. It starts in the suburbs, behind a fence that was impossibly tall. I'm 28 now, and I've never told anyone the full story because I don't have an explanation that makes sense. Growing up in the suburbs in the early 90s, my house sat behind another house, separated by the tallest fence I'd ever seen. 10 feet, maybe more. My parents built it when I was about 5 or 6 for privacy, they said. The neighborhood was quiet, tree-lined, the kind of place where nothing interesting supposedly happened. I was 8 when I saw her hands over the fence for the first time. Summer afternoon, I was sitting in the grass near the fence line, just existing. I wasn't trying to look over, I couldn't have reached, but something made me look up. There were hands. Just hands at first, reaching down over the fence's edge. Impossibly long hands. Not just tall person long, but wrong looking. The fingers bent at joints I didn't understand back then. There was a ring on one of them, metal or maybe something else, something harder, and it caught the light like nothing I'd ever seen. Bright, sharp. It caught in a way that stuck with me. I should have been terrified, should have run and screamed, but I wasn't scared. I felt safe, completely, inexplicably safe. That's the part I can't explain. Not the hands or the fence or the impossibility of her size. It's that I wasn't afraid. So there's the hook. But the real story is what happened after. And as unsettling as that first encounter was, that wasn't the end of it. This became a ritual. Summer afternoons were when the ritual really took hold. I'd sit in the grass behind our house, right against the fence line, and wait. Not consciously wait. I was 8 years old, I didn't think about it that way. But I'd gravitate there every clear day, and she'd appear at some point. Always the same thing. Her hands would come over the fence first, long and careful, and she'd have candy or fruit. Grapes, mostly. Sometimes the good kind of hard candies in a bag. Once she had fresh figs, and I remember the shape of them in my palm, still warm like she'd just picked them. She never dropped anything, never fumbled. Her hands would open, and whatever she was holding would just sit there, waiting for me to take it. I don't remember her saying anything, not a single word across all those afternoons. No hello or here, sweetie, or any of the things a normal person would say. That's the part that should have frightened me. It didn't. If anything, the silence felt safer than if she'd talked. She moved like she knew exactly what she was doing, deliberate, patient, like she'd done this specific thing 1,000 times before. And the weird thing is, I felt seen, not watched, seen, like she was paying attention to me in a way that meant something. I was this weird kid who didn't fit, and she noticed me, brought me things, wanted something from me I couldn't name. I couldn't explain it to anyone because I didn't have the words. How do you tell your mother, there's a really tall woman on the other side of the fence who gives me candy and doesn't talk and I feel safe with her, but something is wrong? You don't. You just go back the next day. The thing about feeling safe with something you don't understand is that there's no language for it. Not in the world I lived in. Adults were supposed to make sense. Teachers, parents, neighbors, they followed rules. They talked. They explained things. This was none of those things. But it also felt like the most natural thing in the world, like she'd been standing on the other side of that fence my whole life, waiting for me to show up. Looking back now, I realize I couldn't tell anyone because I didn't have the framework to describe what was happening. She was too tall. She never spoke. She seemed to know me. The combination should have spelled danger. Instead, it felt like being chosen. But there was more to notice than a child knew to pay attention to, more that only makes sense now. I remember her being so tall the fence didn't even reach her ribs. She would lean over it, not gracefully, but deliberately, carefully, like she was avoiding breaking something fragile. Her proportions were just wrong. Not nightmare fuel, but off in a way humans aren't. The joints in her hands bent differently. She wore a ring on her left hand that caught light like metal or chitin. When she extended her palm to offer candy or fruit, I remember thinking those jointed fingers meant something, like she was being careful about how she touched me. She never spoke. I didn't find that weird as a kid. It meant I didn't have to speak back. She appeared almost every afternoon that summer when I was alone, just waiting, patient in a way that now reads less as kindness and more as deliberation. Like she had decided how this would go, and she was going to do it right. Every movement measured, every reach over the fence slow, never sudden. I never felt unsafe, but observed, like I was something she was studying, but always, always so gentle. That's what gets me now. How methodical her care was, how intentional. She was a thing that shouldn't exist, and she was being so gentle with me. The comment section filled with people who recognized something in that detail. This is one of the most unsettling things I've read. The detail about her hands being jointed differently is what got me. Please tell me you have that photo. The fact that she only appeared when you were alone is the scariest part. No witnesses, just you and something that shouldn't exist. That observation hung in the thread. But in her 20s, OP decided to find that house. What she discovered would shake her certainty about what she remembered. I found the original photo, and my family refuses to look at it. I was 22 when I decided to find that house. What I found instead was abandonment. The property records were vague, no clear changes, nothing that explained the emptiness. I looked at satellite imagery spanning decades. Here's where it gets strange. That lot won't render clearly in Google Earth. It pixelates directly over where her house should be. I've never seen that before. When I told my family, the conversation died. My sister denied anyone lived there. My mom went silent. I found a photograph, though, late 1990s, clear. A figure at the fence. It happened. But now I don't trust my mind. Was it real? Did I construct a false memory? Or did something actually stand over that fence and hand-feed a child when I was 8? The comments had a lot to unpack here. Have you checked property records going back further? The satellite image thing is a lead. If something is actually glitched or missing for that property, that's worth digging into. This could be a false memory your brain constructed from normal encounters with an unusually tall person. Childhood perception is unreliable. Have you verified any concrete details with your family? The problem with the false memory theory is she literally has a photograph. That's not a false memory, that's physical evidence. The real question is, what's actually on that photo, and why the family is denying it ever existed? This could be a false memory your brain constructed from normal encounters with an unusually tall person. Childhood perception is unreliable. Have you verified any concrete details with your family? I did. I talked to my family about it. And that's exactly the problem. They won't engage with it. They act like it never happened. If it was just a false memory, why would they respond with denial instead of explanation? She stopped going back to that neighborhood. For years, she tried to convince herself it was a false memory, something her young mind had conjured to make sense of something ordinary. But the not knowing haunts her more than any explanation ever could. I found the original photo, and my family refuses to look at it. I went back through boxes of old film from the 90s, stuff my parents had stored in the attic for decades. And there it was, clear as day, a figure, impossibly tall, standing on the other side of that 10-foot fence. Her hand is extended over it, holding what looks like a piece of fruit or candy. You can't see a face. The photo is from behind and the angle is strange, but you can see the proportions, the length of her arm, the way her hand doesn't bend right. I showed it to my family and they just froze. My mom said she didn't remember anyone ever living there. My sister left the room. When I pushed, they acted like I was being cruel, bringing up something that never happened. But the photo exists. I have it. And if it happened, what was she? And if it didn't, if I've been carrying this false memory for 20 years, am I losing my mind? The thing that scares me most isn't the answer. It's the refusal to look. Whatever she was, that fence kept her on her side and me on mine. And now I'm older and I still don't have an answer. The comments came pouring in. Most people got it immediately. There was something deeper here than just the strange encounter. The hand-feeding detail is what destroys me. That's intimate in a way that feels predatory, regardless of whether she was human. I'm so sorry you went through this. That haunting gap between what happened and what her own family will acknowledge, that is the last story for today.